Welcome back to another episode, season three. Here we are. Over here on the East Coast, we're still kind of in the midst of the winter drudgery, but we have somebody out from the Pacific that's going to bring a little warmth and make our days a little bit brighter here today. Today I have Mary Lattimore, a harpist extraordinaire, and we're going to kind of have a little chat about her beginnings and where she's going. So thanks, Mary, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Fun.
I heard that your mom was also a harpist.
hmm
Um, I imagine that must have influenced those beginning years or influenced those beginning years. What was it like when you were taking courses to learn how to play this monster instrument? What were those beginning times like when you started to learn how to play the harp, and how did you kind of feel about it?
I would say, when I was a tiny child, my mom would always say, Mary, play the harp and kind of bang around on it. But when I became older, like I was 11 years old when I first started taking lessons from a friend of my mom's, um, she, my mom was like, she thought we would fight too much if she taught me. So this is a way to keep it a little separate.
Right,
So I started taking from a friend of hers, and then kind of as I got better, I started taking lessons from another friend who was in an orchestra in the big city that was near us, the bigger city
right,
that was near our family. And
mm,
and so I guess like in the beginning, when I was 11, I was just learning like one finger at a time, and it takes a really long time um to get your hand position established and all the technical stuff. And
right.
so I would say that wasn't the most fun part of my harp life, was like, putting an eraser, balancing an eraser on your wrist to make sure that it wasn't moving as you were playing up
Oh wow.
the strings and stuff, a lot of technical work.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I was the greatest at practicing, especially as a teenager, but
right.
I eventually I did get pretty good at practicing, and I went to music conservatory for university. But
Right.
in the beginning, it was like a lot of tedious playing, and then my mom yelling wrong note from the kitchen. Um, so it wasn't that fun when I first started out, but then, it took
Yeah,
me somewhere
yeah.
else, and I
And
took
through
it
high
somewhere.
school, like what are your friends or your peers' reaction when you we're telling them you play harp, and like what's what's that reaction like through
Mm.
teenagehood of your choice in musical instrument?
I guess people kind of expected it because my mom,
Right.
my
Yeah.
mom was like the harpist in our town, like a small town in North Carolina. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of like what her, kind of what she was known for around our town. And so it was kind of obvious, or kind of expected, that I would also play
Mm,
harp. Um,
right.
and so my friends kind of expected it. I would We had a little high school orchestra, and I played like solos with the orchestra and stuff, and
Nice.
that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just part of our identity of our family a little bit,
Right. Right. And what did your mom do? Like she was the harpist within a symphony from your
hmm
local town? Like that's where she performed mostly?
Yeah, she still does. She
Okay.
played with the Asheville Symphony in North Carolina for 30 years or more.
Oh,
Um, and she also has a lot of students, and
mm,
conducts a harp ensemble, the Blue Ridge Harp Ensemble, which is a group
wow.
of ladies that and one man one time was in it. Um, they they play around North Carolina and South Carolina. And what else? She plays for weddings. She's just
Okay.
like she travels around our state, just
Great.
playing harp. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, for a layperson and such as myself, could you explain the harp a bit? Like how do you describe it if you had to explain to somebody what you play and it's not there in front of them? Um,
Mm.
I'd love to know how that descriptor happens or how you express that.
I mean, if it's technically, it's the inside of a piano flipped up. That's how I think about it,
Hmm.
with um the high strings are the small the higher sounds are coming from the small strings, and the lower sounds from the big chunky strings at the bottom.
Right.
And um my my harp is a 47 string pedal harp, and it's the biggest one. It's the concert grand, and
Okay.
it has pedals that change the sharps and flats. And so you're doing
Right.
the chromatic, or you're doing the accidentals on the with the pedals,
Right.
and it's
So
it's
your
kind of
feet are
laid
in
out.
motion as well, right? Like
Yeah.
feet and hands are going together.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And so yeah, it's fun. It's a little
Yeah.
adventure for sure.
Are they all the same size, the strings, like gauge wise, do they differ as well?
Mm. They differ. Yeah.
Right.
The chunkier ones are at the bottom, the low notes, and the
Right.
strings are wire at the bottom. They're wire, and then as it goes up, it gets into gut strings in the middle, and then nylon at the top.
Yeah. Okay. And hand wise, like I watched a couple of your videos of you playing. I mean,
Mm,
it's so beautiful, but
thank you.
I kind of noticed that your right hand has more of the higher notes, whereas your left hand has the lower notes. Is that
Yeah.
how the schema works?
Yeah, it's kind of like the piano in that way too,
Right, right.
And the music,
That's a great description.
if you have sheet music and you're playing the harp, it's the same as the piano, treble clef, bass clef, that kind
Right,
of things.
right. So I also read when I was getting ready for this that you kind of have a country home and a city home where you can shift from country to city. You have a family kind of country wise, and then you have city living as
Mhm.
well. Is that accurate?
I mean, I am a city person. Like I've lived in cities my whole life after I left my family, my childhood
Yep,
home. So my
yep.
parents live on a farm right now. They inherited my great grandfather's birthplace and
Wow,
my grandfather's
wow.
farm. And so they live on a farm, but I have always lived in cities and apartments. I so like my parents live on a farm, but I have
Right,
always like I lived in
right,
Philadelphia and Los Angeles, and which is where I am now. And I lived in Vienna, Austria for a couple years, and
wow,
Rochester, New York is where I went to college. So I gravitate more towards like the cultural, like city life,
right,
but my
right.
it is nice to go home and visit my family.
Yeah. I was asking that um because I do have a feeling that your music does have that kind of it's so vast and
Mm.
open. It kind of I have a house out in the country and I overlook this huge lake and just the
Mm.
space and the
Wow.
vastness of it and the quietness.
Hmm.
Um, it really connects me when I listen to your music. I feel like it was created for this environment. Um,
Yeah.
when you write songs, do you notice a different, like, have you written songs both city-wise and country-wise? And do you feel there's a difference when you're approaching your songwriting process where your
Mm.
location is, where you're situated?
I definitely feel that way. I don't know if I've written so many songs in the city. I guess a couple, but a
Mm,
lot of my songs I've written at like artist residencies, or isolated artist residencies that are very specific for creating um, art with
mhm,
other artists and writers and musicians, kind of um set away from everything.
right,
Or like, traveling through the Southwest, looking at the stars, kind of,
mm,
uh, I write a lot of songs based on nature and like how nature makes
mhm,
me feel, like the vastness of the ocean or space, or,
right,
things like that. But, um, yeah, I have never really lived in a very isolated place. I
right,
guess the juxtaposition of like where I live and then the escape to the country, or the
mhm.
escape to nature, is kind of what inspires me.
Amazing, amazing. And
Yeah.
how do you go about your writing process? Like, how does a song become one that you're going to see through. Because I
Mm.
seen you play live. I noticed you always have your box, your electronic box that allows you to layer on different pieces.
Yeah.
How does that process go on for you? Like, is that really how it starts? You'll have one little line and then you just kind of start building and building on it?
Yeah, that's how it starts. I mean, I would say too that it's very organic and very like spontaneous kind of. I think of it as sort of an exorcism where I'm just getting out these feelings or getting out these kind of images from my brain and like trying to immortalize them a little bit. Um
Right.
and get them down. But I would say a lot of these songs that I write are just, they come to me through the looping, or through just like a simple melody, but adding layer upon layer,
Right.
pretty much one take. But
Right.
then, doing some overdubs after that kind of inspired initial take.
Right.
Um, I hope that things keep flowing as they have,
Hmm.
I mean, I feel pretty lucky to have that kind of, you know, go to rely on my feelings to make these songs.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, your catalog is massive. You've written,
mhm.
and then all the collaborations. You seem to be very sought after to join in adding pieces to other people's songs.
Yeah, it's really fun. Um, uh, yeah, I really like to collaborate with people, and I think it's like a conversation to me, like
Yeah.
getting to know people through making music is like one of the delights of playing music,
Right. And what was that first occasion, and who was it that you had your first kind of well-known collaboration with? Do you remember
I
that
mean,
time?
I definitely, living in Philadelphia, there was such a big music scene there, especially when I was there in the early 2000s. When I got there, there was like espers, folk
Yep.
stuff that was happening and big communal hangs um and I would say that one of the first people that I played with was Kurt Vile. We
Mm.
became friends and he knew I played harp and he's like, "Would you want to play some harp on my record?" And that was I think the first time I ever went into the studio was with Kurt.
Mm.
I also played music with the Tara Burke. She goes by the name Versaxa as her
Hmm.
musical project, and she and
Hmm.
Helena Esquivel, um, they we kind of collaborated together on Tara's record and played live, and that was also really inspiring. They both had this green box that you see me play, the Line 6 DL4. They both had that, so a lot of looping,
Right.
and it was cello and vocal loops and then me, and that was really formative. But also,
Mm.
just being in a music scene like that where there were, everybody was going to each other's shows and it was very supportive.
Right.
Maybe not as lucrative, but like, or as like career focused or whatever. But that was, at that time, like Philadelphia was very affordable, and I think that
Hmm.
um, that's a cool thing about living in a city that where everything isn't so expensive, is like artists can actually afford to live there and feel real creative growth and a
Right.
community. And I think that makes so much, it makes the city so much more beautiful.
For sure. I've heard similar stories from artists from Philly as well that say the community there is very supportive and everyone
Yeah.
attends each other's shows and there's like this camaraderie around the musicians, which
Yeah,
makes
it's wonderful.
it great.
Hmm.
I read in Pitchfork, and it's kind of, I'll get into the brass tacks of being a harpist. It said the transportation of your harp is like you have a life companion with you. um,
Hmm.
because you are kind of transporting a structure that's pretty large in scale. How, what is that process like? Like you say,
Mm.
yeah, we just go and we jam, and I'll bring my harp around. Like I imagine it must be
Yeah.
a lot of preparation, planning. How am I going to get it there? Who's going to, like all
Mm.
of that
Yeah.
infrastructure?
I guess I'm just so used to it now.
Hmm.
I have bought a car. I have a minivan that I take her around in. I have a mattress in the back of my car that makes her comfortable in the back. It is like a sister to me or
Right.
something like that. I've had the same harp since I was a kid, and it's a thing like I can never live on a non-ground floor apartment unless there's an elevator. I always have to think
Right.
about stairs.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then the temperature, like the car staying or the harp staying in the car, thinking about the temperature in the car, whether it's too hot
Hmm.
or too cold, or, playing a show and then thinking like, oh, I can't leave the harp in the van. I have to bring it into the hotel at 2
Hmm.
a.m. Are there stairs to the hotel? Is it going to be icy? Thinking
Oh.
about all that stuff. So it is an extra layer of worry about it, but
Hmm.
also at this point, I'm uh as long as there's somebody to help me, I can get it up the stairs, or like, it's not insurmountable. It's not like taking a grand piano around or something like
Right.
that. It feels like more like, oh yeah, just we'll throw it in the car and then we'll figure it
Right.
out. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So you had a record that came out last year in 2023, Goodbye Hotel Arcada. Is that
Hmm.
correct? Yep.
Arcada, yeah.
Um, I've listened to it many times and I actually put it on as I was going to sleep yesterday and it's just so gorgeous.
Thank
How
you.
did that record come to be?
That record, I did it a little differently than I usually do, in that I it's songs that were kind of made at different times. Um, but but uh putting it together was putting it together happened in a chunk, but some of the songs I had made a couple years before, some in the pandemic, some before the pandemic, and I feel like the cohesion comes from when I was actually thinking of it as a complete record. The the editing uh happened with this friend of mine, producer Rob Schnapp, who's here in LA, and I brought these songs to him. Some of them were really sprawling and just ideas, Some of them were recorded pretty badly, like, you know, just me recording and then kind of losing the file and having to find another file, and Rob
Right,
really
right.
helped pull the songs together and like kind of polish them up. And then we added some overdubs and I don't know, I feel very proud of this record. I feel like it has a lot of light and dark in it,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I this was the first time I really incorporated a lot of guests on the record, so I had some of my
Right.
very favorite people sending in parts, or, in a few cases, I was there with them as we recorded the parts. And,
Right.
a lot of heroes, a lot of people that I have admired for so long and now consider
Well,
to be friends. Um, and it was just like, I, I don't know, I feel really lucky that I got these very cool people whose sounds I love so much, to play
yeah.
on.
Yeah, no, you got some great guests that joined you and on this too, you were the writer, recorder, producer, like you tend to do all of that yourself, right? Like you take care of
Yeah.
your music pretty much. You're the chief.
Yeah, I am the chief, except for the record that I made before this, Silver Ladders. I went to
Hmm.
Cornwall and recorded with Neil from Slowdive, and I
Right.
really enjoyed that, and it was really healthy to give up the control,
Right.
Um, I,
Right.
I, that's, it felt really like, oh man, I trust this person so much. I trust his instincts and his aesthetic, and
Hmm.
that came out to be really cool in my opinion too. And so I think there's always going to be a combination of me like holding on tightly to this stuff that I make, like very, because it's a pure expression of myself, and then
Hmm.
also me like giving up the control and trusting in other people. I think that I'm going to probably go back and forth not have a
Uh,
little bit of both forever, you know?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it must be tricky to, I mean, you're getting into the mindset of your musician mindset or your musician hat on, and but you're also having to think about the production side of things. And I mean, I
Mm,
guess you're doing that anyway live, right? Because you are kind of
yeah.
controlling when the loop starts, how it's going to sound. You can manipulate it a little bit. So you kind of do
Hmm.
that on the fly anyway,
Yep.
like in your live
Totally.
shows.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
It's fun.
So, Mary, to just kind of bring things to a close again, thanks so much for joining.
Sure.
It's been really cool talking with you. Your stories are really interesting and
Oh, thank you.
inspiring. Your music
Thanks.
is inspiring. I've been
Oh,
loving the deep dive that I got into with your music. So thank you for that.
thank you. Really
Um,
appreciate it.
m- Maybe you could just let us know like what's coming down the pipe for you, what that you could mention that what's up for
Mm.
2024 for you.
2024, I have a couple big tours in Europe
Hmm.
scheduled. I'm going February 12th or February 13th through March 30th. I'm touring Europe. A couple days in the UK too. And then back in LA for months until June, doing a few more dates in Europe. Then another tour starting late August until October in Europe. So this is um this is a big Europe year, I would say, and
Hmm.
hopefully I started doing some film scores last year and I hope to get one to work on this year too, maybe in the time that I'm here in LA and settled. I got some new instruments I'm really excited to try, some new synthesizers and stuff. So um I feel like it should be a fun, like beautiful travel year, but also, getting to know LA again because I do tour a lot and
Hmm.
I'm excited to kind of dig in these months that I'm not away to
Okay.
really get to back to basics with friendships and collaborations and kind of like be open to what could happen here too.
Right. And do you have any collections that are gathering steam for a record down the road?
I don't think so. I am just like after this record came out in October,
Hmm.
I think I'm just like I think I have to gather some stuff, spend this year like kind of gathering myself. I have
Right.
been talking to Juliana Barwick about making a duo record together.
Oh,
So,
nice.
oh, and what, also in May, I am so fortunate. My friend Walt McClements, who's a beautiful musician, he plays the accordion through effects. His record came out a couple years ago. It's A Hole in the Fence. It's an
Hmm.
absolutely gorgeous record. And he also played on my record. The first song with Meg also features him playing accordion. And
Okay. Great.
he and I have a record coming out on Thrill Jockey on May 10th. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's all, accordion, like gorgeous, droney, saturated accordion
Right.
with harp and synth and things. So
Cool.
that was really fun to work on last year. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
you're forever pushing the ceiling higher and higher.
Thank
Carry
you.
on, Miss Mary. Thank you so much for the time that we've spent together. I really appreciate it, and
Yeah, my
all the best in
pleasure.
your tours.
Thank
And
you.
all the best in getting recentered and kind of grounded
Thanks.
again. I think that's
Thank you.
a good thing to do at times in life.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.